Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Happy Saturday. It's a bit different time because today's speaker, Sheng Wu, our amazing speaker and solid, I would say, in open source space and the creator of amazing open source project called Skywalking with us, joining us from the China. It's really nice that the open source industry leaders coming all over the world, and that Sheng Wu is a great example for that. And Sheng Wu, I guess he will talk a bit more about himself. I think the list was going on, and he is currently also working for the company called Tetrade, US based. I know Varun and JJ is a early day from the Istio involvement, and he was the product manager there, and then they created amazing company. It's really amazing to see that Sheng Wu is also part of this company, and he's board director in Apache. I'm sure that most of you already heard. If not, you should, because that's one of the really greatest, I would say, what do you call it, Apache Foundation, as similar to SNCF that we can say. And
yeah,
earlier,
software development foundation.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, well, that's briefly about Sheng Wu, and let's go. So today's agenda, we kick started, and we will now go to chit chat part, which I'm sure we will have it. And briefly about this session, this is a last session of chapter 4. That's really amazing, and my first hosting since I joined Gladly. It's really amazing that we are running it together in collaboration with Metabob. And let's go for the chit chat part. I'm gonna now post in this chat. I think 1 second. I need just to change it. So we're gonna do most of the names I can recognize, so it's nothing really something new for you. And please check the link and write your question, what you would like to learn from this webinar, and don't be shy. It will help Sheng Wu to cover your questions or the things you are interested. So I will repost as well, I see. And please get started. So, you can also check in the link. It's a Jamboard we have, so I can switch. I think I will also just switch here. This we all see. Yeah. Yeah. Please go ahead and we'll give another minute and then we will wrap it up. And obviously you can still share and we will make sure that, yeah, your questions or the points you will be interested. Again, there will be also a live question in the end, highly engaged for you folks also to join, I guess. I think that's another thing I don't like about the Zoom, that the chat history when you join, that you need to repost every time. I'm not sure if Shenggu you hit to that, but because the people when they join new people, they can't see the chat history. I need to repost, so I will just repost. Just make sure people won't miss it. Okay, awesome. I think some of the questions folks had posted, so I guess for the rest, you will highly engage, but no pressure. You can come back and share as well. So awesome. Now we are back to presentation. And for the audience, we currently have 18 people. It was really nice to see people joining from Nigeria, Poland, Chile, India, the main where our community is coming, also in open source space is really nice. And Shenggu, by this session, we would love to see more folks joining from China as well for the webinars, and it's a good start, I would say. And you can, that's the point, you can also teach us how we can engage the community in China. That and obviously the time zone, probably that will be the one thing that we'll be more than happy to change. And few folks also from joining Azerbaijan, and we love the diversity. Thanks so much for being today. And code of conduct is simple: learn, benefit, contribute. Again, no marketing, selling, competing. That's really beauty side of the open source. We here talk about the how we do stuff from engineering perspective, which is indirectly also helps the, I will say, in some level to the project itself, and which eventually end up also selling. But yeah, not direct selling. And equality despite roles and background, that's there. And now is a photo shooting time, and we are kindly asking you to turn your camera and take a nice Sunday faces picture. I see only 5, but we will give you Axel.
Hi, sorry, I have a time conflict. I'm in another event at the same time.
No worries, man. You did the hard part. I'm doing the easy part. So I guess I see some nice faces, folks. I recognize most of you by name, so don't be shy. I have seen you before, so if you like, just turn your camera, and once I will start taking picture. And are we good? Anyone else? Last call? Okay, awesome. I will take just in case one more. Awesome, cool. And we are back to our presentation. Okay, Shenggu, I will pass the microphone to you. Floor is yours, please.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for joining us for the meeting. And because of the scope of this project, and I think we will cover a lot of knowledge and a lot of landscape of all around the project, but still working for the observability. Now about Skywalking, and I created this project like 6 years ago, and all of these things began explosion, and all of the things expanding much more than I was expected. The short version, and I think I have be introduced and give a quick version. I'm the founding angel of the trade, and we are building the commercial service mesh. And so mostly for me, I'm work for service mesh observability. I'm being selected as a board director of the Apache of the Foundation, and this is the first time, and I'm very honored that ASF have the first board director from China. And also, I'm the curator, VP, and BMC member of Apache Skywalking, and there are other several Apache top-level projects. You may know some of them. There are API 6 for the gateway, incubator for helping all projects who wants to join the Apache Foundation, Sharding Scale for the management database like MySQL and Postgre, something like that. eCharts is a wonderful visualization project. Dolphin Scheduler is a cluster mode, Airflow to controlling the workflow in the cluster and scaling mode. Also, I'm helping on the CNCF KubeCon program committee to review all the CFP, to help in set up the sessions, especially before the COP19. And for the project, like in the 6 years ago, actually in the 10 years ago, we are involving all the architecture from the traditional architecture to the Microsoft architecture. All of the things get more and more complex. And this is how the things was in my mind, because in like 10 years or 8 years ago, I was work for the ISV to provide a service to China top telecom company. And that was a disaster time. I have to work with 7 other vendors. There are 8 vendors to build a distributed system. And at that moment is still SOA based. Even for that, the whole developer team will be in chaos. Everyone is blaming at other team when something goes wrong, and every team thinks that this is not my fault. And so in our mind, we need a system to diagnose. Actually, more accurate, we want to identify a person to blame. So we are having this in mind, and because back in there is a Zipkin there, but it's not so powerful. It's just for tracing, but we need system to diagnose. So we are in mind that we need APM, and in a whole 20 years, the APM system is only commercial only. We have the New Relic, we have the AppDynamic, Dynatrace, and recently we have Datadog, even we have other vendors like Instana. They all provide very fancy and very powerful APM system, but all in commercial version. But we want to contribute it, to collaborate by the whole people in the open source world. We like that kind of ideas to have all people to contribute and to create a more powerful and more useful APM system. So based on that, we start all of the things, and at nearly the same time, Kubernetes or Mesos, Docker at the beginning. So even from the day one, we recognize that we need to help the system to monitoring from different levels, from the hardware or mostly from the operation system kernel level. And this is so-called very stable and very traditional monitoring. And we have Docker, we have Kubernetes in the runtime. And last layer, we have multiple language codes directly for the different business. So there is a too much layer, and there are many issues to be resolved, but we think we have very limited people, because at the beginning, Skywalking have 3 to 5 developers have interested to be.
Hello? I guess we lost.
Is
Shengwu, I
you hear
think
me? Hi,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
you're back. You're back.
Okay, seems like
But the video,
stable.
yeah.
Okay, so let me get it back. So we are going to build the APM system, and we know from the all experience we have 4 fields at least we need to cover. It's metrics, tracing, logging, and events. For the first 3, I think most people when read blogs and articles, papers, we will get all familiar with metrics for the members, tracing for the context, and enhanced version of the logs. And the logging is more like the most traditional way to debug online system. But for the events, we are going to introduce today at end. And we can see from a lot of recent modern APM system, we are focused on the events because besides of the performance, mostly caused by the traffic, the load of the system, and the other side, the performance issue could be caused by the change. We call that the event. Something like we upgrade codes, we change some configuration, we change the system config. Something like that will cause the disaster and the chaos in the runtime. And at the beginning, we think all of that changes are normal and unharmed. But at the beginning, all the system begins to crash. So we need to link all of that events as much as possible. So the 4 layer we have mentioned, like a language agent, we mostly, because that Neuralink Dynamic do that, is language agent. They are mostly into in-process monitoring, but we don't like the idea of the Zipkin or Jaeger introduced, like the A2 instrumentation is very hard. So we are going to skip that and just do manual instrumentation. So any people say we need SDK, we need hard-coded integration, but we don't think so. We still think as a skill, as a technology-focused community, we need to resolve the hardest part. So at the beginning, we are going to jump in the hottest development language for the business solution is the Java. So at 6 years ago, we are doing the Java agent, and then we have more language agents. And for the Kubernetes monitoring and the traditional open source operation system monitoring, we are prefer to integrate with current stable and widely used ecosystem. As an open source world, you don't need to build anything and you didn't need to compete with other projects or always. You just want to build a better system on the top of the other ecosystem. So for all that things, we want to speak about tracing at first, because in the all recent 3 years, this is topics, the hottest topics. Everyone wants to talk about tracing. So at the beginning, if someone doesn't familiar with these parts, Google released their research paper like 10 years ago. And a lot of people and in the Zipkin, in the Jaeger, they implement these concepts. So we have the tracing concept, there's a span concept, and use span ID and parent ID to link different spans to represent the parent-children relationship with the timeline, so we can see all of that things in the graph. That's, you can say this is a context-enhanced logs. No matter you want to admit it or not, that's basically not very different. And at the same time, people are mostly focusing on that. And the Zipkin and the Jaeger show people you need a very large big data analysis system. You have to run that to analyze all of the things from the trace. Also from the Google Dapper paper, they told people if you use tracing to diagnose the system, you just need a very low sampling rate. But because if you know the background of this research paper, they are doing some research for Google search engine. So when you face that kind of cluster, that kind of traffic, it's very common. You say there is only like 0.1% of the traffic should be enough for diagnose. But when you face traditional business system, people are begin to ask, I need 100% sampling, because this kind of error may just happens once or twice per day, and even per week. So we have to all of them. And for more interested that people want to do topology analyze, metrics analyze based on the trace, because basically tracing cover the edge of all of the nodes. So once you do the RPC, once you call the MQ, cache, database, there always a trace at their sites. So we can logically, draw all of the topology. So in all of the Skywalking's tracing, we are doing very similar to the Dapper, but we call that the Dapper Plus because we need to analyze all of the topology. In this page, we can get some screenshot from the Skywalking. That's a very traditional trace. We still provide that because people like that to diagnose all of the system. And also says we provide a method called streaming topology analyze. We are going to introduce in the next slides to tell people how we do all of the streaming analyze topology without a big data system. And most importantly, you don't need a very large scale to do all of the analyze. And at the same time, we do the customized metric script, the observability analyze language. That's a language we created for the Skywalking itself. And we have the combiner, have the runtime to support that. So you can customize all of the metrics, and you don't need to understand Java. You don't need to understand any coding languages. And this is just a very simple script. And you have the full performance for the streaming analyze. So today, before we jump into all the details, we want to share the people, like if you are really looking for the all of the language agent you want to use, you can find at our website. I do some screenshot here. You can have the Java.NET, PHP, Python, Node.js, Golang, Nginx, C++, even for the browser. And the people are adding more. I think they are even considering monitoring the mobile app, native mobile app like iOS, or they are doing some. I already know that people are using our agent tag technology to build the agent in the intelligence car system. It's not in Tesla, but there's some other vendors are already building this kind of open source project into their cars. So for all of the tracing, and in the traditional world, we all know that we need span ID and parent span ID, trace ID to link two traces together. But this is the only link we had. So we run the analyze. We need big data, cache, and the whole system to build the whole topology together, like the at the right top topology. That is a screenshot from Skywalking from the real system, not by me manually. So if once you have the agent deploying online, all of the topology will be generated and layout on the UI. But at the same time, you should understand this is a little different because streaming Skywalking's backend is fully scaling. So because they are not need to require you to wait client side or server side spans, because we are propagate the peer network address, because at the service A side, you want to call service B, then you use a network address to call that. So we propagate it. We propagate this address to the server side. Because of that, we can build the topology at client side, said you are service A called IP address. Also at the service B side, because service A already propagated, you know service A equals service B, and also at the same time, you know this IP address represents the service B itself. So we call that a mapping, a generated mapping. So peer work network address represents service B. And this sync mode, this is a limited sync cache will be synced at the backend. So once the sync is generated, at the client side analyze, we can generate the service A equals service B because we can translate all of the MAC address. And before that, so there is a three possible option when we query the topology, and we will do the query stage merging, and also always give you a consistent and topology. So this will be a very short version of our Dapper plus tracing theory. You may not be able to follow this very easily. And we have a STEM paper, Streaming Topology Analyze Method paper on the Skywalking website. You can go into there and then deep diver. There is a 4-page paper for you to explain in every case why this methods works and works in streaming with low blocking and low global cache mechanism. For the languages, we call that the script, the observability analyze language. You will see the grammar, and this is some example to such as how to calculate the endpoint latency. In the Skywalking endpoint, you can understand this gRPC service name or URI of the HTTP REST services. So you can calculate all of the things. You can calculate whether this is status, how the successful rates looks like, and how much percent of the response code in your system, and even you can get which how many traffics will you get, request or post or either. You can imagine all of the things we collected. You can use that to generate the metrics. Once you have this finished, this kind of script and reboot the Skywalking backend, Skywalking will be fully functional for these metrics analyze. And you can get them from the dashboard and extend in the alarm, in the data exporter, all of that. And for the metrics, we can know that from previously, we have metrics analyzed from the tracing. But that's not all of the case, because at one side, only the business application I have agents, the system, the platform, the Kubernetes, the Mesos, all of that platform, they didn't provide tracing as always. And most importantly, we don't need tracing all the time. So we more focus on the traffic, the red flag, the red traffic to get all of that information. So in the metric, there is a lot of stable and expanding ecosystem in the world. We don't need to build their own, but yes, Skywalking have their native metric system. They're very similar to the OpenTelemetry, OpenSensors definition, because actually, if you look into the world, this looks like all of the metric systems are very similar. So in Skywalking, we have Prometheus Fetcher. We have OpenSensors gRPC receiver from the OpenTelemetry. If you want to grab by the OpenTelemetry from Prometheus and forward the data to the Skywalking. Also, some people may already know OpenTelemetry have their so-called native OpenTelemetry metrics format. We are not supporting them. Oh, sorry, we are not supporting them yet, but once it's stable and whether you adopt, it's easy to add. Also, for the operating system, people are more, especially for the existing system, there is a lot of Zabbix deployed. So Skywalking could replace your Zabbix server, and you now have Apache 2.0 licensed server side for the Zabbix, and you just need the Zabbix agent, keep them because you already have that. Also because of the mesh is getting hotter and hotter, and we have the Envoy metrics service. This is a gRPC service, is native provided by the Envoy. And I think Matt just gave introduction in the last time. So this is a very special case. So we focused on that and provided a more complex analysis system, especially for the Envoy. This is a very simple Skywalking's dashboard. This is a dashboard you can find on the website like the demo.skywalking.apache.org. We provided that demo system for the whole community. You can try by yourself. The username and the password is Skywalking. It's open for all of you. Also, you can customize all of this metric. This is just a demo we provided in default release. And we just give people so that you can have all of the metrics. You have to have all the line graphs, heat maps. You can just configure whatever you like. For the metrics analyze, we know that if you get familiar with Prometheus, you know there are PromQL for the query stage and analyze. But in our case, in our experience, metrics analyze could be a very huge size of the calculation. I think if you put Prometheus in the cluster, in the very big cluster, you will face the performance impacts. You will feel this is not a very easy thing, like Prometheus and Grafana not work that easily if you are monitoring like thousands of nodes. But this is a case we are facing. We are going to analyze a cluster, and every services, even one services have 1,000 ports. So this is the real case you want to deal with, the real large scale distributed system. Lots like that ideally, because from my mind, like Prometheus like system is easier and is for you to adopt infrastructure level monitoring, but don't try to not focus on service level. That will be a disaster. But because you, the Prometheus is widely used, so we provide you a chance to switch to alternative the server side, and you can use all these graphs. Like this is also a graph language, and this is also a script. So you can have the rates, you can have the metrics analyzed, you can have the downsampling, you can have all of these calculation and equation to calculate the metrics. And also you can get these metrics visualized on the Skywalking UI for any purpose. The biggest difference is all of these equation, all of these expressions are translated into distributed streaming calculation. So as when you query that, all of the data are already calculated and persistent in the storage. You can get them directly from the database. So it will be very quick and very constant, and constant. You doesn't worry about is the data going to blow all of your queries because it won't. And this is a more complex things. If you want to write this kind of scripts, there's some demonstration, and this is a data sample, and we present it like a very Prometheus style, so you can follow this easy. And there are several parts of the expression. So first is the filter. You can do the tag match and the value comparison. So you can filter some metrics from all of the metric sets. Also, you can do the expression. You can do the metrics calculation. You can do the metrics divide. So you can have new metrics calculated from the original or from the meta metrics. Also, you can have the application that's some kind of downsampling to merge different metrics number together, such as you want to group something together, you need that. And also in all of the data, you want to calculate some trend, then rates, I rate increase, that will be many meaningful to use. And also you can do a lambda for the tags, so you can manipulate all of the tags because people want to add new tags, remove some tags, rename some tags, because the original system is solid and you don't want to change them. So you want to change that from the script side. Also, you want to build a histogram from the data sample, that is fine. You can do that. So at the end, there is a little different from the GraphQL, from the Prometheus QL you're facing, and that is the downsampling. That's the keywords when we do the streaming analyze. because the downsampling, we have to save the row sampling to the minutes level. Means for any entity, for any metrics, you have only one latest value for every minutes or every hours or every day. So you don't need to store all of the data. So you can grab the data from the target system no matter how frequency you want. Because Prometheus will tell you, please grab the data like 50 seconds at a time or even more, because once you grab more, then the Prometheus will suffer the performance. But we are going to not doing it the same way, so we doesn't care how frequency you are going to fetch, but we are going to do downsampling. But when you do downsampling, you need to give a guideline about you are going to do the average, you are going to use the latest value, or you want to combine all of the data together. So this is a downsampling. And the metrics level, because from the Skywalking UI, you already saw that we have the concept for the service, like the logical service, for the instance, like a pod in the Kubernetes, and endpoint is the URI or gRPC service in your system. So you need some sample to identify these kind of entities. We don't want all of the metrics just lay out on the same dashboard. So we give you a level system to build all of these things. Even for the service, we have higher level, we call that service group. So you can group all the same similar metrics, or they have the same meanings metrics together, and you can compare them in the same group. And for the first three, and the last thing is the logging. And this is a very traditional things, and people are more familiar with ELK and or Splunk. You will not feel very new things from this. For today, we have the FluentD and FluentBit and Elastic Firebit, because this is a very popular. And like we are going to evaluate and check the status of telemetry once their collector gets hotter, and we are going to support their native logging formats. But right now, Sync FluentD and Base have dominated all the open source log connection. And also for the mesh, because of that, we are going to connect Envoy access log. And this is not the traditional logs, because if you use the Envoy, you have Envoy access log in file, and that is a traditional log field. So you still need FluentD or Base to connect that kind of logs. But we have a special case for Envoy access log services. That's a gRPC services also oriented, provided by the Envoy community. So if you have that, that will be a magical thing. With that log, you can build the whole topology, how the metrics represent service, endpoint, instance, and to build the whole topology without agents. That is the advantage of the service mesh level observability did. And that's based on the Envoy access log services. This is a totally new thing. We used to share all of the ideas at KubeCon 2 years ago, and we keep evolving of that. So if you want to try that, you can search about service mesh observability or Envoy access log. We have different posts on Skywalking website or the Newsstank to introduce you how to build, set up the whole things. They are all open source in Istio, Envoy, and Skywalking. You can build all of the things by yourself. Also, these all have been demoed on our demo environment. You can find them there. So this is a very traditional logs, and you can have all of the collected logs related to these services. And the screenshot I provide here is to want to highlight, you will see there is a trace ID already identified, and you can use this trace ID to link to the tracing system. So trace and log will be automatically a collaboration, and because these screens are our agent-based native, very native, the way to link all of the trace ID to the logs together. So you have all of the things, you can keep all of the tags in the logs and just need very little things in the trace and to lower the load of your tracing system. So in the skywalking, in the real environment, we have tried to set up agent for 5,000 RPS system with 100% sampling. You have all of the trace from that system with just the actual 10% of the CPU and just 200 to 400 megabytes memories. That's the totally cost you have. But you have all of the trace, you have 100% saved. But for the most of the business system, you have less than 1,000 RPS. So you have very little or very less payload, let's say less than 5%. So basically especially for the Java agent, you are using a nearly or even better than commercial levels agents. We can say how which agents we are better or not, but you can do the comparison. And there is a lot of statistic online. You can check about how to do the 100% sampling. And from the log, like people did in ELK or Splunk, you have a script to identify, to split, to parse text. So basically we give you several stages. One of the text stage, you get the text. So you need to separate the keywords from original text. This is a regex. So you can have the timestamp, thread, level, trace ID, and the messages from the logs. And then you have the extractor. So you can tag all these messages and even identify the trace ID. This will be how we did that for the previous screenshot. And for right now, if you use the Elasticsearch or OpenSearch as Skywalking storage layer, we have that. We also have support for MySQL PostgreSQL, TIDB, or even the H2 for demonstration. And if you use Elastic, you can have the full text analyze. So you will see the extractor is not that fancy because you can search all of the text of the log and to get the results. But for the other cheaper storage, you don't want to do the fully screen. That will be a disaster to the database. So we will automatically block the text search. And in that storage, we will recommend you to use the extractor. And you extract the high value things to the label system. And we focus on the label-based search. That will be much efficiency and cost you less. Also, we need to generate a metrics from the log. That is the common case, especially we want to monitoring business performance rather than all of the purely system level performance like RPS, such as we want to do how many orders get canceled, how many business level error has been raised because of the rules check, some metrics like that. If you put some kind of messages in the logs, we can isolate them and to generate the metrics. And then this kind of metrics are back to the ML we already mentioned and to all of the analyze. Then you can have the dashboard for it. Also for the logs, we don't want to save all of them. So we have the sync. We can do the sampling based on the source name, based on any log tags we have, and do the rate limited for different things, and based on different traffic, different load, and so you can have different valuable logs. And also you want to the false logs and log dropper. So if these logs match some condition, we want to drop them. We don't want to save it no matter what is in there. And also we can force this sample. If some metrics are highly valuable, even we already sampled enough data based on the RPM, but we still want to sample it, you can use the forced log sampling like this. This is the error, this is a special user, something like the VIP user. You always want to sample this kind of log to provide better service quality. You can do this. And the last thing is very common is that it's the events. All of the chaos caused by events is like traffic is kind of events because all of the APM system already introduced it as the highest level priority to you. And also sometimes you change the codes. You replace the image. You change the JVM bootstrap. So all of that kind of things could be events. Even you do the chaos testing. Yeah, and think that these days chaos engineer is got hotter and hotter. You are doing these kind of things, and at the same time you will get a lot of alarm because of this kind of testing. And you want to know what alarm is from the original system, what alarm is affected by the chaos testing. So you need something like events in many places. And right now we give you a very easy and direct view on the dashboard. And this is a screenshot from the dashboard. Once the event generated, we have an event dashboard for you based on the timeline to tell you what is generated, what event is detected. And once it's detected, it will be highlighted like the red zone in the graph and told you at this time, this event generated, because all of the events have a start time and the end time, because like the pod could be started, but you need a duration to finish all of the start stage. And that is not a date point. It's always a duration to cover a time. So this is the basic visualization you are going to see, and we already begin to enhance all of the parts, what we are going to detect. One is basically because we are based on the Java agent, this is the JVM startup, shutdown, and option change. Because I want to highlight that option change is the most important case we are make the disaster choice for the system, like we change the memory allocation, we change the GC policy. Every time we did that, bad things could happen. And also, agent collected limited information. We need more. And most of the things are based on the environment. So we basically provide the basic code base. This is very similar for you, is a COI system, because Skywalking have a COI interface. If you really want to do that, you can see all of the graph. Even you can see the trace from terminal, because you don't have the browser to the whole system. But in this particular case, you can report the events, because you can use different technology, even the script, the share, to detect all of that events. And as last step, you can report there is events related to some entities, to some services, to some instances. And all of that could be linked in the system. And even it's not linked, it's not harm, because you just want to keep that for the event side. Events, the number of events is very limited compared to logs and the tracing. So don't worry about that. You reported too many events because you can't. The system traffic will cost much more loader than the Skywalking system. For give people a clear idea of the skills of the capability of the Skywalking, and for the latest and incoming the 8.7 release will be goes on live in next Monday, and you will see that we are only used 20 to 30 CPU to process like 1 million access log for Envoy per second. That is a huge traffic. Imagine how you could create other kind of metrics events from the traffic level metrics or logs. So don't worry, and you just collect as much as you need. So, and also people should understand the CD system, the continuous deployment integration is also another part of cross the disaster. So, but every company could have a GitLab based, could have the internal version pipeline and have a different CD system. So we just give you a demonstration. So we build the COI system based on GitHub Action. And this is a very simple case based on the COI command we just gave you, and use that in your CD system. You can report all of the port upgrade, system upgrades automatically. And every time you do code upgrade, you will know that, oh, this time there is something happens. And when it starts, when it ends, and you can have the graph. And also in today's modern architecture, Kubernetes gets more and more adoption. So Kubernetes also have the event exporter, because Kubernetes team already know the events is very, very important. So Skywalking just work with the Kubernetes. You can export all of the Kubernetes events to the Skywalking. And then once your pods have the same information, you will get that from Skywalking's UI. And if you set agent or use the source mesh directly, all of that source name will be automatically matched to your target system. Also, besides the outside, there is some internal event detector, mostly because of the alarm, the metrics. We call that the internal events detecting. Think like that. There is a topology. There is an upstream service. You have downstream service. Once the upstream service gets some performance issue, the downstream service most likely we are going to have performance issue unless you have a very good downgrade system. But for the most system, you may not have that. So we are going to highlight that once your upgrade system goes into the performance impact, we will highlight to you. And you will know once this system gets some error, and you will be checked upstream first, because you need to restore the upstream performance first, and then to check whether the downstream still have the issue or is just disappears automatically. And for the alarm, for the event alarm, just we talked about generates events from alarm, but this time we are generate alarm from events. So this time for the crash, something like that kind of events, if this happens, you need to set up, you need to tell people. But for the health, there is a health check, but we will recommend you don't do that kind of alarm every time once you fail this kind of events. So we are recommend you like to at least do 5 times health check. Is still not working, then please send alarm to the whole system, like that really is some pause is going on. And for the community, like we have a lot of the introduction, like there is I think there are 40 or 45 minutes introduction for the whole system, and still this may be just 60% of the fusions in the whole system. And how to make that quality, I saw the question, I think someone asked about the community. That's a thing of the Apache Foundation are very focused. And we land that as a top level project, and this is very important. So there is several sides of work for the technical supports, for the community driven. And for the first one is Skywalking has over 500 code contributors, and we just counted on GitHub. This is just some people contribute codes to the Skywalking reports like we listed before, and they're over 500. That is crazy. And the different SIGs are for different fields, like Skywalking nearly covers all of the language from C++ to Java. And there is no engineer who covers all of that languages as an expertise. So we have different people for different languages, and they are focused on their fields only. And our way to collaborate with other is based on the protocol. So you follow the protocol, then it starts working, then two groups need to sit down together to see what is going on. And we set up for the tracing case. Tracing means you have to adopt, if someone did that, even for the Zipkin, for Jaeger, they didn't have our fully support of all of the version, all of the compatible tests. Skywalking have over 1,000, even 2,000 integration tests integration test means Skywalking agent really works with that target framework like gRPC, like HTTP client. Any ideas of the libraries you are going to use, we are going to check every version, every release in the demo environment and check whether the tracing is working, the reported data is expected. And they are doing for every commits, for every pull request you landed on the Skywalking. The last part is the end-to-end testing framework. Skywalking is going to release our next generation end-to-end test framework, which is originally built from the Skywalking itself. And like 1 or 2 months later, we are going to publish that to the global user. You can use our idea, you can use our experience to do your end-to-end testing. How to use the Docker Compose and local kind as a Kubernetes container to set up your environment, how to query the data, how to generate it, the mock traffic, and how to evaluate. We are setting up the whole test framework. This test was written by Java and based on the Maven technology stack, but people complain about it's very hard to understand, but people doesn't understand Java because Java is already too complex. So we rebuilt all of the things. And right now you have the local runnable, even GitHub Action runnable framework, and you don't need to understand all of the Java technology because we rewrote it in Golang and driven by the shell scripts. So once you have a Linux, you can run that. And we have people tried it on the Mac OS. This works too. But sadly, we don't have enough people on the Windows today. So if you want to do that, you may need some kinds of work on the different operation system. So this is a very special case we run for the whole community. So every time we have a very good quality to do the release, but you should understand that Skywalking's community even doesn't test manually for every release. We count it and we are very depends on all this automatically testing. And we don't trust union tests much because we only have 50 to 50% union test code coverage. We trust end-to-end testing because for a very distributed system, this is the only thing you can count. Okay, so here's all of the things I'm going to share today. This is the Skywalking Twitter and my personal Twitter, and I think I will be there for a long time on Twitter. So if you want to reach me, you can follow me and send me some information or mention me if you want to discuss. It's totally fine. If you want to submit all of the issues or all of the discussion for the Skywalking, go to Skywalking's website. We have mail list, Slacks, and GitHub issues for you to discussion for the tech details.
Thanks so much, Shenggu. I guess now we're gonna switch to Q&A part, and we will. I mean, how do you feel, Shenggu? Do you feel to take a short break, or you feel good? And I know it's late there.
Yeah, I think we can continue on the Q&A parts.
Yeah, sounds good. And if you folks, I'm sure that if you want to take short break, feel free, and then you can catch up in the recording. But meanwhile, and if you have any live questions, we will take or in the chat. So otherwise, I can get started. So Shenggu, my first question will come purely from Commonwealth's experience, and what will be the difference, let's say, or where I should use, let's say, Datadog, Sumo Logic versus Skywalking? Yeah, I think that's one of the things probably you get already asked it, and what's usually you say? Yeah.
This totally makes sense that for the commercial APM system, like I say, they're very fancy. They're provided tens of the fusions. and at the same time, you based on what you need. Some company has two very typical requirements. One is the money. That the APM system is always very expensive. I already get playing at the Fortune 100 company globally, and they say they cannot afford the money. So if they are not going to afford all of that monies, so I think like we used to have that concern for the Unix, for the Windows. That's how the Linux goes into the open source, and we collaborate together from the global engineer. And that is a very typical use, and we are cost time on it, but the money will be reduced clearly. And the other side is we are going to build some system on top of the existing APM system. A lot of company have their DevOps platform. They even have AIOps a platform. And if you are using platform like Datadog, you have to use their AI platform, and they are not giving you all of the data, especially the raw data. They are not giving that. If you just want to metrics, that's fine. But you want to more, and you want to all of the streaming data from their system is nearly impossible. And so that is the two things you should considering about that. And for the open source user, if you already used open source, like you are using Zipkin, you are using Prometheus, you are using EOK. So we all know that there are two suffer cases right now. One is a lot of companies, they are going to change open source licenses, like SSPL, like GPL. People don't like that somehow. And because of usage, because of your the scope you are using, so you should considering no matter Apache Foundation, CNCF, they have the Apache 2.0 license project. You can do whatever you want, nearly whatever you want to like. Just keep the license as you use them. It's fine. So that's the typical case you want to know. And for the existing Zipkin, because I used to be a part of that community. I used to be part of the Open Tracing too. And if you want to, one day you have, don't trust that 100% will help you, you should consider in the APM level tracing system, because they are designed for 100% sampling as always.
See. Actually, yeah, I was also, but while I was in engineering, also contributed to the Zipkin piece while we were working for the project called Engine Mesh. That was really quite went into, but again, as you said, yeah, like you need more on top of it. It's just the tracing part give you, it doesn't give you the full.
If you just a very simple tracing, I would say Zipkin or Jaeger will work for you, because different project because like I deeply involved all of that project. I doesn't seem this like a competition. It's like for different experienced engineer trying to resolve different issues. Zipkin is a very good start, and some people are not satisfied at the limited fusions. That's all.
Yep. And I actually, getting back a bit, how you get started, yeah. And I recall also one of the talks from the T3 Zach. He was mentioning that there are so many open source projects getting from China, and we decided for the skywalking, why not we use the now from the China. So it seemed like it was only, it wasn't usual in China in that test for the open source project, and for you coming to this point and to this mindset and starting, and how was it? Maybe.
Yeah, this thing is still hard in China, I think, to be honest, because I'm working for Tetrade, so actually Tetrade is a US company. I'm a founding engineer, but remotely. So I was working for 4 companies during whole skywalking build process, but still I land in the US company. There is a thing, because open source takes time. It's very slow from the initialization to making all of things work. It's very, very slow. And from the first 3 years, no one trusts a single person would build a system used to have in the commercial version, like you need 300 or 500 group of the full-time engineer could done. That's you have to suffer. That's have to. You may trust yourself, or you may say you are too confident to do such as things, no matter what you think. But this is the case. You have to leave, and you need the company to trust you. You need your supervisor to trust you, and you have to find the balance, and you have to find a way to benefit the commercial, because one way or another, someone need to pay, no matter for myself or the project's other engineer, or even to use this project, this kind of user are actually paid money, but they just pay for their own engineer. So one way or another, these kind of things need to create very significant usage, very significant requirements. You have to adopt that. So these kind of things will drop the project forward. Then you have to very open to all of the people. You have to get familiar, because before the open source, I'm a people like nearly have no connection globally. I live in my city and I just live in my life and have no connection, and see the 6 years, and I have a colleague from nearly every time zone. So
Wow.
from Japan to the west coast of the US, and you have every time zone people, you have every time zone friends work with you or communicate with you just from the community or from the commercial, from the company. And in China, people are still, most engineers still not get familiar or get used to these status. And so this is hard. And this is actually became a part of the my duty to do the education. So for the China conference, I recently nearly have every month I have at least one conference presentation to talk about open source, not related to Skywalking at all. We are going to talk about Apache Foundation. We are talking about open source culture, talk about a lot of things to educate. So it's still hard. And we are very happy to see a lot of projects, because right now we have, like, if I remember correctly, that we have 17 to 80 Apache top level project initialized from China. And we have dozens of that from China at CNCF or the Linux Foundation. So these things are going to getting better, but like all of the open source history, it takes time. Apache Foundation takes 21 years to be today's level, to be the top of the world. So we just keep patient.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely admit that following in social media, and I see you as also a role model coming just and talking about, and definitely the project, it's kind of, you need a few of the early adopters that people come to the stage, and then the community will follow them and engage them once they understand.
Yeah, I think actually basically you are going to resolve a general problem. The more general the problem you are resolving, the more people will are going to join you, and don't try to duplicate an existing solution. That is not helpful.
Exactly. And coming to, because there is SNCF and there is also Apache, and how you end up picking the Apache Foundation in this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I tried, because if you run the Google search, you will see Skywalking used to submit application to the CNCF. But based on the structure of the community, we are finally land to the Apache Foundation, because the difference between the Apache and the CNCF, there is actually not a technology decision. It's like the community mode. The Apache Foundation is fully volunteer. No one is getting paid. but the CNCF, the TOC team, or the CEO of the foundation are paid. There's a marketing team and the infrastructure team are there. And actually, these foundations, the people running both foundation, we are very familiar with each other. Some of them are the same people. So these are just two modes. If you are a vendor, or if you are a vendor driving the project, you want it to move fast and move based on your guidelines, and then CNCF is a good place to go. And they are asking about vendor diverse, something like that. So at least you need 3 vendors to support this project, then you can going forward. You don't need to get all of the power to your committer from an individual developer. And for the most of the project, I think I wasn't sure Matt introduced about Envoy's maintainer structure or not, but if you take a look at that, CNCF asks you to evaluate the activity of all of the maintainers. You need to elected maintainers every year or every 6 months. But at Apache Foundation, you are free to get here and leave. We can give you a title like official committer. You can change the code. You can approve others' pull requests, or the PMC member who can approve the release. And you can get the title and then disappear forever. We don't require you to focus on this project. From the Apache Foundation perspective, we just trust. We just trust that this project is useful for globally wide people, and some people will show up. Some people will fix the bug. And the only requirement for the PMC team is security. So you have to fix or provide a solution for security leak to provide the high quality system. But for the Fusion side, for any other code sites, that depends on the community. So this is the question you are going to get answered from the Apache project. If you ask, I want to do these fusions, the most answer you will get is, we are welcome you to contribute. But there's no guarantee other people will take over the ownership and say, this is the fusion, the PMC team, the committer team will take over, and goes in that way. And the CNCF actually in this state, they are not guaranteed these two. So basically you have to contribute. That's how the things works continuously for the open source.
And I think that's, you brought a good point, because more and more, at least the companies I worked and I see that they're depending on the open source project, and then these voluntarily based. And do you see also here any drawbacks? But moving forward, when let's say there could be some project that if it stopped getting maintained, and or the community, some members leaving, and then and there is, let's say, some bug that it's becoming harder to use, and then so much dependency on that, how this piece works out?
Yeah, actually, every month the Apache board have a board meeting, and one schedule on that meeting is to retire some projects.
Okay.
Because that project is the community is dying. But from our experience, like this kind of project are dying are very normal cases, because this is not like users are still using, but the maintainer is gone. This is kind of things is very uncommon in the Apache Foundation. The most case is this project is not being used. It's not being changed anymore. It's either very stable because some tools are staying that way, or it's already cold. People doesn't need to resolve this kind of issue anymore. We can see that project. We usually we are retire 3 to 5 projects and every year, and sometimes 10 projects a year. And this is very common. So this will be maybe for if someday the Chris, the CNCF CEO, if he's showing up, maybe he could answer a question like how CNCF retire project. Once the project ends, if they are in the CNCF process, like they cannot pass the incubator, or even they graduated, but sometimes vendors come. because these things will happen eventually, one way or another.
Yep. And how we are doing with hands-on, I guess I will have moving forward, I guess. Yeah, just feel free to, I may not check the hands-on, just folks, and just feel free to open your mic. Otherwise, I will keep going. And how about the like service mesh issue? And I saw that the Envoy was picked up, and as talking to the Matt also in previous session, he was saying that there is $30-40 million he would estimate that number of employees that's kind of the engineering cost for the project itself, and just picking up the metrics and so for the Envoy. Was there any particular reasoning? Because there is also, let's say, Nginx, HA, and all this, and kind of more, it feels more native way integration with Envoy in this case for the project. And is there a particular reasoning you can say that?
And for the proxy side technology, I think I'm not that qualified, but for the mesh vs the traditional proxy, I think from my mind is that especially for a very large scale system, and it's provided like you don't need a commercial level or even Skywalking's agent, but you still can have 17% of the metrics, and you can have the security, you can have the TLS, you can have the limited race, but your codes could be as simple as possible because these kind of fusions are taken outside of your system. This will be ease the system, and it's very friendly to the Bronzo system. So this kind of things getting hot have a reason, because microservices was introduced, and the DevOps says this is the method to make the DevOps for the microservices to land it. But actually in the real world, people notice that the microservices are creating chaos. If you separated a system to microservices, that will not be beautiful. That will be harder to maintain. That will be more issue to jump out. Your SRE team will be very busy to deal with all of the issues for the microservice systems. And for the service mesh, we say that you can build a big enterprise system, even in the Kubernetes, it's fine. But you need some kind of microservices platform, like downgraded traffic, some scaling, some security issues, some observability, some checking, some authentication. So that's fine. Service mesh are going to take care of that. So from all of the technology concept, don't compare like what gRPC can do, what service mesh can do. You will notice they can definitely doing the same thing, because Envoy is built on gRPC or HTTP2, and they are doing the solution for the different group of people. Service mesh could help from the ops team directly to resolve this kind of fusion request. And originally, this fusion could only be resolved by the developer team. So this is my idea to, you need to change angle to see this kind of issue rather than compare to fusions like that.
I see. Nice. And I see Santosh has raised his hand, and please, Santosh, go ahead. And
yeah, I just had this question in mind. So I think since this software is like there for some time, so do you think there's some advantages that we have over other systems like New Relic or whatever monitoring systems we have, like Datadog? Do you think we have some capabilities which stand out?
I think we have this, maybe I give a short version because we explained it in the beginning of the answer. Like APM system, like you can have options for commercial, you can have options to the open source, and they are you can say competition, but actually they are working for different people. And because if you are a DevOps team, you need your own monitoring system. Datadog is just provided a commercial product. And you didn't want to do anything, and you just want to sing out of box, then commercial version is definitely the easiest version you want to get if you want to pay the money. So choose all of the things, like you can choose a Unix from the IBM, or you can choose the Linux from the Red Hat, and even you can get the Ubuntu from all the pure open source. And that seems competition, but actually that's a different agenda people are choosing different tools.
Cool.
Thank you, Santosh. And we are moving to next. Studi, do you want to have a live question, or you will like me on your behalf? I guess, yeah, I will just voice. How's observability integrated by the project? I think Studi is asking.
Chaos engineering. Okay, chaos engineering. So, I don't know. Are you using the chaos mesh? So this is the thing getting hot in these days for the chaos. So chaos testing, chaos engineering, actually very big proof that observability are very important, because that's a tool to verify a tool. That's a tool to verify a system. And once you create chaos, you need a checker to see whether your system is working. And if you don't have observability, you just have to check how the website looks like. But whether the system is really being chaosed and really be restored or downgrade, you need that kind of ability. So how these things works, actually, this is not hard. Chaos trigger is just the events, and observability will back up all of the proof that your chaos engineering is working and your system is downgrade, adopt to all of the policies. And then things are still working as expected, like the topology, the data flow, the error, even all the statistic. So that is my understanding of the chaos. Because the reason I ask about chaos mesh, because personally I'm a friend of the PingCap, the company behind the chaos mesh. We are working together. We are working together trying to get an out-of-box solution once you have the chaos mesh in use, and you can have that events on Skywalking directly.
Thank you, Studi, for asking a question. So I will come back, I guess. Anyone else? So we are doing good. And coming for the part of the project, I will say that because there is a contribution, and also there is other things you need to do beside the code, and talk me about projection and all this stuff. And one of the, for example, Matt, as a pointed the issue or struggling point was not really the code contributors, but more the documentation, people coming up with use cases, example, and so on, kind of the challenges. So, or yeah, any of these you would like to just top of your mind mention, and where you feel today, or any other challenges you feel there is a more stronger need that, for example, as a GOP community, folks can be interested to join and contribute? Because again, level could be for senior level, junior level, but doesn't matter. But yeah,
for the Skywalking, and if you want to contribute to APM related fusions, and that bar is require you to have real world operation system experience. You need to understand why the system are going to fail, and how you identify these kind of fails, because that is how you understand tracing, logging, metrics, events, all of that. And also because of the thing, we have other tours, like we have students like the high school, the junior university students, they are joining our community because they are doing tours like the end-to-end testing framework, the license check tours. There is a lot of tours incubated in our project, and that things have a very low bars and just tours, so you can join in and help the community, help the foundation to build this.
It's one of the fun things I remember in Redis conference, Salvatore, he was mentioning that if you want to get a job in China, that you need to understand the Redis code base.
Yeah, that's
also for skywalking. But yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you for the China, if you works on the China open source users, and if you ask about the China vendors about skywalking adoption, that's over 80%. So we are dominate this open source user zone, and but you may not need to really like that things like you need to understand codes, but the case is you need to understand how the things works. If you are all really a DevOps, SRE, or operation team, that's true. And no matter you are using skywalking or not, or just Prometheus, Zipkin, Jaeger, or telemetry, or any other tools out there, all of the basic concepts are very similar. You just choose different tools to resolve different use cases.
And when it comes to also how's the mentoring piece work for the project, and because you said that they need to understand, but then once they want to also test it out, is there like for this how things they get tested in scale? Yeah, like what's usually, can they still everything run in their own laptop and as a development while
Yeah.
they
Yeah, the skywalking is based on the modularization ideas. So all of the concept, all of the fusions we introduce, you don't need to have that at the beginning. You can choose. Some people choose metrics to replace Prometheus server. Some use agents. Some use service mesh. It doesn't matter. You can choose one, or you can even keep seeing one. I see users in the community. They even just use skywalking to replace Zipkin to provide same tracing analyze, no analyze, just tracing. But they want 100% tracing, and they set up the large cluster for just skywalking's backend to do purely tracing work. That is how open source works. You never know. You never know. People choose maybe just 10% of your fusions.
Awesome. I think we can wrap it up. I know we are also a bit over time. I know that Chenglu, it's really late there, and I really enjoyed. And it's, I will say it's a good start for me also with this project and the companies, the projects. I mean, and definitely skywalking. As I said, that I heard from Zach, was it a couple years back, and but I didn't get the chance to really hands-on. But this session, I think that will be a good start. And knowing you personally, it's even inspiring that if I have any question, I can be confidently that it will be taken care once I get more to the details. And thanks so much for the folks joining. And I will, 1 second, I will share my screen for the wrap it up. And it was really amazing, folks. And the amazing thing was about that Chenglu, we didn't know that person, but I just reached him over LinkedIn and talked about briefly the community. And thanks so much that he spent time, that I know that he's busy with so many things going around, and to share his experiences. And hopefully we will expect from the folks joining and check the project and come up with as a blog or share your experiences or contribute. And we will use this session as a reference, and it will be in the list of the folks who are asking for the project to start contributing. That's definitely. And I guess for the LinkedIn, and Chenglu also earlier shared his Twitter account. So please feel free to reach if you have any specific questions. And with that, we are also community, Chenglu, and we also try to accelerate the folks for coming to open source. And here and there we have the project, but more we try to collaborate with other communities and kind of be the bridge and for the folks who are getting started and bring them to the level that they can really contribute and they know really industry leaders. Because I'm sure you have seen that also some folks we see also like doing some marketing using in a different way in open source, but the point is we try to keep as much like for really industry leaders who are really open source mindset, and you're definitely one of the best in that space. And thank you so much again, Shengwu, and I know it's late there. Happy Saturday or
Yeah, thank you.
Sunday already.
Yeah, thank you for setting this up.
Thank you so much, Sheng and Shako, for the
Yeah.
session.
Mhm.
Again,
Yeah.
last like it's the last 10th session, and Excel, Nurlana, Rasim, you guys did amazing job, and I did like just the easy part of hosting and asking some some questions I had, but really you guys did a hard lifting part, and obviously the community members who I could recognize by their names, and really you guys are the key core part of the community, because that's a consistency, that's a motivation level we are looking for as a community moving forward. Shengwu, any last thing you would like to say, share?
No, so I'm good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, to join, and thank you, everyone, to setting this up, and really enjoy.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you for coming, Shengwu. Such a great session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. And
Thank you, everyone.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.